Welcome to this episode of On the Sidelines. John Luck along with Zach Sylvia. And we've been gone for a while. Once again, during the summertime, we'll probably do like one show a month. And think about last time we did a show. Rafael Devers was a member of the Red Sox. The Celtics still had players. The Bruins were off. Oh, that part's still true. Anyways, let's go to what's leading off, and that is the Boston Red Sox making a huge trade with the San Francisco Giants. Obviously, Rafael Devers going out west to San Francisco. The Red Sox receiving a few prospects, but more importantly, in the case of the Red Sox and John Henry, he saves a bunch of money because the Giants are going to take on the rest of Rafael Devers' contract. When this deal first was announced right after that Red Sox-Yankees game, the game that Rafael Devers hit a home run in what was his final at-bat, I was flabbergasted. I was surprised. I was shocked because I thought we were kind of past the point of Rafael Devers being a malcontent in the clubhouse, but apparently he was still continuing his, I guess you want to call it narcissistic ways. He wants everything to go around him. He wants to continue to be the DH and all that. But to me, it's just a case of being completely shocked that Rafael Devers was traded when it initially happened.
I mean, I was also shocked when I saw the news at first. I mean, your guy, this was your top offensive guy all year. He had around 12, 14-ish home runs around the time he was with the Red Sox.
15 home runs, 58 RBI.
Exactly. So that's your guy on number one offense. From that point on, their offense had started to struggle, unlike what we're actually seeing right now. They're kind of on a surge. But I saw a little bit. I saw
Nationals, Rockies,
I mean, I saw today that the ways in which he was dealing with the Red Sox about not playing the field is going on in San Francisco right now as we speak. He's not practicing at all on the field. He's just not playing defense at all.
So when the Giants got Rafael Devers, I believe Matt Chapman was the third baseman out west for the Giants, and he was injured. So at the time, Devers could play third base, but there's some moving around out there. In the case of this, from what I understand, I think Devers is going through some type of lower body injury. Is it a hamstring injury? Is it a groin injury? I don't know. But the one thing I do know is that if you do have an injured hamstring or an injured groin, anything like that, last thing you want to do is continuously take grounders at first base. So if he is injured, I can't really fault him for that. In the case of, Rafael Devers in the clubhouse, to me, the biggest thing is I thought the Red Sox had some type of clubhouse divide ever since Alex Bregman became a member of the Red Sox. I thought you had one side of the clubhouse that was with Alex Bregman that wanted him to be the third baseman of the future going forward, kind of the de facto leader of this team. And then you had the other side, the side of Tristan Casas when he was at first base that wanted Rafael Devers to, kind of run everything, be the de facto third baseman and all that. They wanted everything to stay status quo. Same thing with Jarren Duran. To me, there was a divide in the clubhouse, and I don't think the Red Sox are going to say that, but there was a divide, and something had to happen, and at some point, Craig Breslow pulled the switch.
I mean, I agree, too. And the one thing you notice especially is that Red Sox players aren't really, talking about the situation that was going on with Devers. It seems to be more of a disconnect with most of the players now than we saw at the beginning. But, I mean, Devers wasn't a great third baseman. He was one of the worst in the league last year. I mean, you get a guy like Bregman who definitely elevates that defense. I mean, he hasn't played in a long time, but he just got selected to be an all-star.
Somehow, you don't play for 2 months, you still get to be an all-star.
I guess so. But I think it just comes down to stuff that we weren't hearing or that wasn't being reported from inside the bullpen.
So doing this show once a month, we kind of have the luxury of being able to digest information, digest the news. And now that we've had about a month and a half of Rafael Devers playing for the Giants in this trade going through, have your thoughts or quote-unquote emotions changed as to how this all went down?
Honestly, I'm less angry about it now than I was at the beginning because it's like, this guy's your franchise player. He did everything for that offense. But now it's like you kind of look more into it. You kind of see what was going on. And it's just like, first of all, this is a salary dump on the Giants. You need to get rid of that awful contract. What was it? 10 years, $250 million or something like that.
It was over $300 million.
Exactly. It puts the Red Sox underneath the cap by a large margin, but I think that was part of it. And I think it was just trying to get rid of that little toxic weed inside the.
The one thing that worries me if I'm a Red Sox fan is what will John Henry do with the money that he saves with this move? If this just turns out to be John Henry kind of moving the barrels around and taking the money that he saves with this deal and maybe using it toward a Liverpool, contract situation or a Pittsburgh Penguins contract situation, then that's going to infuriate the fan base. But if legitimately this is a baseball move for the Red Sox and you're going to use the $300 million savings that you got by trading Rafael Devers and using it at the trade deadline or in free agency, then I have no issue. But right now, to me, this comes across as the Red Sox wanting to get rid of a guy who was, a poison in the clubhouse from what we're kind of understanding here, and being able to save $300 million of John Henry's wealth. If it comes across as that John Henry is going to save the $300+ million, then I'm completely peed off as a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, John Henry at that point should sell the team and give it to somebody who actually cares about the Red Sox.
Indiana Henry navigating people down the staircase.
Let's go back to the start of spring training when Alex Bregman originally got signed by the Red Sox. At that point, a lot of people had their thoughts as to how Rafael Devers was going to handle the situation. At the Giants' introductory press conference, he was asked about playing first base with the Giants, and he said, quote, or asked about how he handled the Red Sox situation, and Devers said, quote, "If they would have asked me at the beginning of spring training, yes, I would have played first." To me, that quote brings up the question, who do you blame for this entire situation? Devers, Breslow, ownership, or Alex Cora? Because to me, in this case, Bregman's off the table because he just got signed. You can't blame him.
Yeah, if I had to point any blame, I share it to a number of those guys. I share it with Devers for not handling it well emotionally. I hate Breslow for just the late signing and not letting your best player at that point in time know that he might have to play first base because they're thinking about signing somebody else. I don't really think any of this blame goes on Cora. I mean, maybe he has something to do with the Bregman signing. But otherwise, Breslow and Devers I put at fault.
I put Breslow probably at about 90% of the blame pie if we were to bring out the big blame pie. Because you have to understand that you're dealing with players, and players are basically children in this case. And you have to go ahead and include players, especially big contract players like a Rafael Devers, in on everything you do. So how I would approach, things at the start of spring training is say, listen, Rafi, we're exploring getting Alex Bregman. We think that he'd be awesome. We know in the past that you have asked us to get help for this team. We think the only way that we can get help for this team and get us over the hurdle is by signing Alex Bregman. But if we do that, we're going to need you to either be the designated hitter or the first baseman. If you have an adult conversation between Rafael Devers and the robot known as Craig Breslow, maybe he can show emotion, I think that would have really smoothed things over. Right now, how this appears is Breslow was asked by Cora to get Bregman, bring him to the Red Sox, and Breslow just said, okay, let's do this, and whatever happens, happens. And Devers probably found out, like we did, that the Red Sox signed Alex Bregman. So to me, Craig Breslow, if everything went down the way I think it went down, that's a complete, F as far as job performance goes with that aspect for Craig Breslow.
I 100% agree with you. You have to, again, going back to this, Devers is your star player. He's your best player on that team at that point in time. You need to let him know as well about what they're possibly going to do in the offseason. And if that was for him to switch to first base, they should have told him.
I mean, this got to the point where John Henry had to take his plane to Kansas City, and I have no idea what he's going to order in Kansas City as far as barbecue goes, but I'm guessing he stopped at a fancy barbecue restaurant. So Rafael Devers, I think it's safe to say, is a fan favorite player for the Red Sox, right? Or he was. Mm-hmm. And this is just really the latest trade where the Red Sox have to deal with fans' fury. You go back to 2020, the Mookie Betts trade. Then you have the Chris Sale trade. There's just been a number of trades that have made the fan base angry. I mean, are we at the point here where the Red Sox fans may legitimately jump off the Red Sox bandwagon if this season doesn't pan out in a playoff appearance?
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, you said it. Mookie Betts was probably one of the worst trades I had seen in Boston sports in a long time, and then them getting rid of Chris Sale. Mind you, these two guys are, I don't think they were all-stars this year, but they have been at like an all-star pro level. If you still have those two guys on this team, this is an immediate championship team. It's an idiotic move.
I think I have the graphic on the screen now. If we look at the Mookie Betts trade, they acquired Alex Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and Connor Wong. The Red Sox gave up cash, David Price, Mookie Betts. Alex Verdugo had, I believe, somewhere around 45 or 50 home runs during his time with the Red Sox. Connor Wong has been an abomination offensively at the plate for the Red Sox this season. Jeter Downs, I don't think he actually plays baseball anymore.
I don't even know who
Mookie Betts, over 140 home runs with the Dodgers and 2 World Series championships. I mean, it's just maddening to think. So as we approach the trade deadline here, and quickly in about 60 seconds, do you think the Red Sox will be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline based on the fact they now have $300 million of salary cap that they can use going forward?
I think they're going to do a little bit of both. And one thing that honestly scares me, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about him, but Jarren Duran, he's been in trade talks for years now. I mean, I don't think they would trade him, but he's definitely a possibility. But I think that when you have that money, you were able to bring in some of these guys. But again, you trade Duran, that fan base is going to come for your neck.
Let me help you out. They're trading Duran. A couple names to look out for at the first baseman spot here. From Baltimore, Ryan O'Hearn, expiring contract that ends at the end of this season. 287 average, 11 home runs. Another name to look at, Josh Naylor, currently on a one-year deal. He has 11 home runs, 58 RBI, and 11 stolen bases. So if the Red Sox are serious about being contenders in 2025, then I think those are two names that maybe look for as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. We will take a quick break here. We talked about one big roster situation with the Red Sox. How about another roster situation with the Boston Celtics as names are moving around the NBA?
Welcome back, buddy. Okay, let's roll. Hey, you hear that? There's a truck back there. Hey, whoa, stop! Watch the paint. Oh, man. On your right.
Your car is talking. Are you listening? Find out more about new safety technologies at mycardoeswhat.org.
Crazy to think 1 year ago we were coming off the celebration for Banner 18, and here we are. The roster has just been shredded apart for the Boston Celtics. Of course, we know that Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis each traded away. Luke Cornett, actually I really don't care about that one, going to San Antonio, and Al Horford. We'll show you the archive of the show.
Okay.
Al Horford, it was announced by Brad Stevens, more likely than not, will not be a member of the Boston Celtics in the 25-26 season. Of course, Drew Holiday getting traded to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons, and Kristaps Porzingis part of a 3-team trade involving the Celtics, the Nets, and the Hawks. Of course, the big reason for these trades is the fact that Boston Celtics trying to get under that second apron before the start of next season. So let's start with the departures of Holiday, Porzingis, and Cornett, and what this means for the Boston Celtics as far as on-the-court play.
Well, for starters, losing a guy like Drew Holiday is always going to be a detriment to your team. Your team isn't as good defensively now. But I will say on the brighter side of things, I have watched Anthony Simons play in the past. I am a fan of his game. He's offensively very skilled. Defensively, obviously can be better, but he has the length for it. As for Porzingis, I don't like what they got for him. George Niang, are you kidding me? Get him off my team right now. I don't want him in Boston at all. But, I mean, and you said it, is because they were trying to get under the second apron. It stinks, but it had to happen.
So as far as Georges Niang goes, there's going to be some team bonding activities if he's still with the Celtics between him and Jaylen Brown.
And Jason Tatum.
But, well, Tatum's not going to be with the team this year, really. No. But as far as Simons goes, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded before the start of the season, because right now the Boston Celtics are still about $1 million over that second apron. So I would not be surprised to see Simons get traded before the start of the season. But these were trades that had to be made. At this point, teams were able to hold the Celtics over the fire. They knew the Celtics had to get rid of Porzingis. They knew the Celtics had to get rid of Holiday. And they knew that they didn't have to give a king's ransom for these players because the Celtics just had to shred salary cap. You look at what the Celtics potentially could have had going into this upcoming season. They could have had a salary cap, including luxury taxes, of about $500 million. The Tatum Achilles injury, of course, really was the spark for all of this, and the fact that the Celtics had to get under that second apron, the fact the Celtics probably aren't going to be championship contenders, so what do? You kind of tap that reset button. You don't slam it, you just kind of tap the reset button. This gives you a chance to pull things back a little bit. You avoid those repeater taxes that the Celtics really would have been screwed on. And if you can go ahead and maybe approach that first apron, then that's really going to help you out, especially if you're talking about players like Damian Lillard, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But to me, the fact that the Celtics got anything back for Holiday and Porzingis is amazing to me. But don't be surprised to see Simons get traded. I would not be terribly surprised to see Sam Hauser get traded as well. At this point, the Celtics have to carefully break things down. And at this point, I don't think Hauser is a part of the long-term solution because you have a Bayless Shireman who is that spark plug off the bench that can launch threes very easily. So at this point, the Celtics just have to kind of play the shell game and moving different parts of the salary cap around.
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I think the CBA is ruining basketball entirely. I mean, we could have had the same roster for the last 2 years, but no, we have to do all this. And I don't know, this report just came out today around 4:30-ish. I saw the CBA is proposing that they move the regular season to 84 games.
I think that was the NHL.
Is that the NHL?
I think that's the NHL. That's a different train wreck. We're talking about the Celtics train wreck right now. But
yeah, but all in all, I mean, it just sucks to see it too because, again, we just saw these guys hold up the Larry O'Brien, go through a parade with millions of fans, and now...
Well, they knew that this was bound to happen. At this point, Porzingis has his money, Holiday has his money. Does it suck that in the case of Porzingis he has to play down in Atlanta? Probably. Does it suck for Holiday that he's playing out basically in NBA's Alcatraz? Yes. But Holiday is still due over $100 million, but now that $100 million comes from the Portland Trail Blazers. You bring up the CBA, and that's a big issue that I think a lot of teams are going to have to look at. Going forward, teams are only able to probably have one true superstar contract. And when Tatum comes back, you're talking about Brown and Tatum being responsible for over half of the team's salary. I don't know if that's, long lasting. I don't know if a team can go 3 or 4 years with that. Plus Derek White's money is going to kick in. So this is just a situation teams are going to have to deal with. Rick Grossbeck knew that this was going to happen, going forward, and that he was only playing with fire, and at some point things were going to catch up. And unfortunately, it caught up in a big way in a basketball disaster. Going forward in the 25-26 season, what is a realistic expectation for the Celtics? And I'm going to bring up the standings for the East in places 6 through 10. Detroit was 44-38. They were in 6th place. Chicago was 39-43 and basically hemorrhaging players off their teams. But they made the play-in tournament. Of course, Detroit was the 6th seed. Could Boston maybe fall in between one of those seeds?
I honestly think they end up as the 7th seed next year. I don't think they're good enough to be a top 5 seed at all. And I mean, you said it too. Detroit is honestly one of those teams that is up and coming. They are very young. They are very talented.
They're fun.
Exactly. They're fun to watch. But I mean, when you have a starting lineup of Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Georges Niang, and whoever they play at center, it's not a championship team.
I think the Celtics can realistically make a run for, this is all basing on the health of Jaylen Brown's knee. If it's healthy, the Celtics can make a run for 4th place in the East. I still think so. They still have Derek White. They still have Peyton Pritchard. They still have, for the moment, they still have Sam Hauser. They still have a representable basketball team. I mean, you look at the rest of the teams in the East. New York, I think, will be a top 4 team. Milwaukee, that's going to be interesting with the addition of Miles Turner. Indiana's going to fall off the face of the planet because of what happened with the fact they lost Turner and Halliburton, obviously, with the Achilles injury. Orlando's going to be another top 4 team. In my eyes, I think the Celtics could be fighting with the Atlanta Hawks, ironically enough, maybe for a first-round home court advantage. And in my eyes, if that's the case, then the Celtics are sitting pretty going into the 26-27 season when you're going to get Jason Tatum back.
I mean, I agree. It's just, obviously, it's always tough. You got to play each of these teams, some of these guys, four times a year, 2 times a year. But it's just the roster makeup at this point in time can't compete with those 4 teams.
And there's still some moving around to do. I mean, Luka Garza could be a sleeper pick as far as the Celtics from this offseason and the free agency run. And, I mean, maybe you get a contribution from some of your end-of-the-bench guys with a Jordan Walsh, or, you know, maybe you can get a Drew Peterson back. Maybe he can help you out as well. Baylor Shireman needs to make a step up. Obviously, this is all dependent on the health of Jaylen Brown's knee. Is he going to come back at a full 100% at the start of the season? If he does, then I still say the Celtics are a top 4 seed. Maybe 2 seasons away, maybe the Celtics will make another big addition. Gary Washburn was talking about the possibility of Damian Lillard joining the Boston Celtics. He was on NBC Sports Boston Early Edition saying, quote, "It's cheap. $5.6 million mid-level exception, 2 years because he's already getting paid by the Bucks, so money is not an issue. You sit him for this year, you let him rehab his Achilles, whether it's part-time to go to Portland and back to Boston. You have 2 All-NBA players coming back along with Jaylen Brown and Derek White, and then whoever's your center. 2 All-NBA players, 3 All-Stars, and a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and you're starting 5, and you come back to try to win another title in 26-27. Is it crazy to think Damian Lillard could join the Boston Celtics, you know, even if it's just to sit on the bench this year? Could he be on the Celtics going forward?
I wouldn't be surprised if they sign him in the next couple of weeks. I think that's a good veteran player. I mean, he still has that ability as a long-range shooter, and obviously he'd be probably doing most of his healing process with Jason Tatum as well, as it was both Achilles injuries. So definitely I think he'd be a good asset. He is a little older, but again, the money thing, only 2 years, $5.6 million, I think that'd be a great deal, and you could bring a very talented guy to a very talented roster.
I'm trying to think about the other teams that he's been rumored to go to. I think one of them was LA. I think another one was Golden State. And if those are the 2 teams that the Celtics have to contend with, then the Celtics are getting Damian Lillard.
Exactly.
Because when he comes back in 2 years, you're going to be out west in a gauntlet that you're going to have to go through every year in the playoffs, or you're going to be in the East playing with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and running roughshod through the Eastern Conference playoffs. In my eyes, the Celtics can get Damian Lillard for 2 years with that mid-level exception. And this is also a get-right deal. If it's 1 year with Damian Lillard, you know, playing at his classic game time level, perfect. Then he can go get his contract elsewhere. The Celtics may have a 19th championship, and, you know, we're back on tracks to another dynasty. But Damian Lillard, if he does come to the Celtics, is going to rehab out west in Portland. From what I've heard, family was a huge part of, you know, why he wasn't happy in Milwaukee. He wanted to be in Portland with his family. So if he can go ahead and sign with the Celtics, rehab in Portland, I think that's perfect because he is buddies with Jason Tatum. So that'd be a perfect world for him. And then finally here, we're talking about the Celtics potentially rebuilding, retooling, whatever you want to call it. Is Joe Mazzulla the right coach for this team as we currently see this team basically in a remodeling mode? And I'll just keep it simple. Nope. Fire him yesterday. Your turn.
Honestly, I think this year is going to be a big contributor to what my answer will be. I think if they do well, I think if they get a top 4 seed, I think if they make it at least to the second round, and they look like a decent basketball team, I think that he will stick around. But if this year doesn't go well, we might not see Joe Mazzulla in 2026.
there's a possibility halfway through the season we could see Joe Mazzulla having a Rick Pitino press conference. I'm putting money on it. Larry Bird's not walking through that door. He might actually.
Jason Tatum's not walking through that door.
Aw. We will take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for the buzzer, and MLB's All-Star Game is around the corner. Does anybody actually care, though?
76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Midsummer Classic is right around the corner from when we're recording this. The MLB All-Star Game taking place down in Atlanta, Georgia. The Red Sox are sending 3 players. But the big question a lot of people have around this time of the year involving this game is how to make the MLB All-Star Game as popular as it once was. I went through the viewership according to Baseball Almanac, and their highest viewership was back in 1976, the bicentennial, a viewership of 36.3 million people. Their lowest viewership just a couple years ago, down to 7 million, and last year a slight bump up to $7.4 million, or 7.4 million viewers. Can MLB get its All-Star Game to be as popular as it once was back in 1976?
That's a tough answer because baseball on its own, you really have to enjoy the game to be able to watch it. And obviously, yes, these are the league's best players, so it's obviously fun to see them. But it's like almost every other All-Star game. Not a lot of them take this thing seriously. A lot of them are just swinging for the fences, just trying to hit home runs. So, I mean, it's a difficult task to try to do it. I think the one way you probably could is try to advertise it more than you have in the past. But I don't know if you'll ever get to that number ever again.
I think if MLB went to what the NBA is going to do next season and maybe have a U.S. versus the world, or maybe go with what the NHL playoffs is, or NHL is doing with the Four Nations playoff, maybe play with the All-Star Game. I did a little bit of research, and going back to the 1960s, I believe, it's always been on a Tuesday, it's always been at night, it's always been ALNL. Baseball is just continuously stuck in its way going back to the 1800s. I mean, it was like trying to draw blood from a stone to get a clock for the pitcher. I mean, play around with this game a little bit. If it's shortening the game to 7 innings and having, a mini tournament over 2 days, you replace a home run derby, then do that. The biggest issue with All-Star games in general, NHL, MLB, NFL, MLB, NHL. But the biggest issue with all these All-Star games is the fact that you can watch these players anytime. The biggest draw a long time ago, going back to even the late 90s, was, well, I'm not going to be able to watch Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa all the time, but I can watch them for one night play on the same team and face Pedro Martinez. Sign me up for that. But now I can watch, Shohei Ohtani 100 times a season on MLB Network, and with the LA Dodgers and their salary cap situation, they can just sign anyone they want under the sun, and you don't really have that question of what if as far as what would a potential matchup look like. You can always see a Shohei Ohtani Mike Trout matchup. Back when they were on the Angels, they faced off the last pitch of the World Baseball Classic in 24? Like, you have ways to see potential things you want to see in an All-Star game anytime you want. And the same thing for the NHL and the NBA. NBA nowadays, you can go ahead and sign players to make super teams. And you can watch them 40, 45 times a year. You can watch the Los Angeles Lakers realistically basically half their season here in Boston.
Yeah, pretty much. But I like what the NHL did, especially with the Four Nations. That was one of the... I'm not a hockey fan. I don't really watch hockey that much. But I will say that was one of the most entertaining All-Star weekends I have ever watched. I think every other sport, especially the MLB, needs to look at that and say, okay, maybe we should try this and see how it works. I think a week tournament of at least 4 nations, maybe 6, because there's a lot of nations represented in the MLB. I think if you get a little tournament style going, I think that more people will watch.
Also, play around with the timing. I mentioned the Tuesday night issue. every All-Star game is around 7, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night in the middle of July. You're not going to get a lot of kids watching the game. So switch it up a little bit. Make it a Sunday afternoon at 4. That would be perfect. You can go ahead and keep the main basis of your viewership, the 75 and up people, happy because it's earlier in the day and they can still have dinner and, get to bed by 8 o'clock. But for the kids as well, they don't have to stay up late. They can watch the game and comprehend everything that's going on. And to me, that's maybe the biggest thing MLB can look at. Change the day, change the time, and maybe you can get the viewership back over 10 million people. This is it for On the Sidelines for the first half hour. You can watch the full show on our YouTube page. Just search BTV Access Corporation. But if you're with us for overtime, we will have it coming up in the Boston Bruins and the draft, and it's free, and the team's free agency, making some fans a little angry, including one who's not here. We'll try and encapsulate how Brad's feeling about the Bruins after the break. There's a lot of messages.
I saw him.
I have to try and comprehend what he actually wrote.
Game-changing play. Pulls up, turnaround to win it. Got it!
Welcome back to the madness.
Welcome to On the Sidelines Overtime. John, Zach here with you. Brad McKinnon not with us, and that's unfortunate because we're talking about the Boston Bruins right now. And they had the NHL draft a couple weeks ago, and the Bruins with the 7th overall pick drafting James Higgins, a center from Boston College. Last season with the Eagles, Higgins had 11 goals and 26 assists. The Bruins also drafted William Moore, Cooper Simpson, Vaishek Blanar, and Cole Chandler in the draft. We're not the hockey guys here, we fully admit that, but from what we understand, what's your take on the Bruins draft?
I mean, I'd say it's very solid, especially looking at some of the numbers here. Higgins with 11 goals, 26 assists. And then the guy right underneath him, William Moore, 40 goals, 51 assists. I say those are pretty good numbers looking at it on paper. But I think it's definitely, especially if you're Boston, you need young talent now. You haven't had a lot of young talent come in and make an instant impact.
Here's the thing with Higgins, Moore, Blanar, and the other guys they got. 4 players that they drafted are centers. What's one of the big things the Bruins needed, coming out of last season? It's a center. They're still trying to find a way to replace Patrice Bergeron and really shore up those top 2 lines as far as the center spot goes. So at this point, all the Bruins are doing are basically buying lottery tickets here and hoping for the best. Now, it sounds like Higgins is something to watch in terms of the near future. I mentioned the 11 goals with BC last season. This year's World Juniors, he had 5 goals and helped Team USA win a gold medal. You look at what William Moore did last season in national competition. He had 40 goals and 51 assists. If you can get one of those 2 guys to help out with the NHL club, in the second half of the season, then I think this is a great draft for Don Sweeney. When you get down to past 50 or 75 on the NHL draft chart, you're kind of just basically drafting crapshoots and hoping for the best. But Higgins and Moore, in my eyes, are probably the 2 players that I think Bruins fans are probably most happy the team drafted.
I agree, too. And, again, it all comes down to young talent. And Don Sweeney, we'll see in the next coming years if he actually hit a home run with either of those 2. He better hope that they were home runs. That's for sure.
Worst case, he gets fired. It is worth pointing out
best case.
Cooper Simpson, a left winger, drafted 79th overall. Last season in high school in Minnesota, 49 goals and 34 assists. So, maybe the Bruins are building for the future here. Obviously, time will tell. Along with the NHL draft, the Bruins also had to deal with the start of free agency. And, free agency was hot and cold in a lot of cases for the Bruins. They signed left-winger Tanner Janot to a 5-year, $17 million contract. Last season with the LA Kings, Janot had 67 games, a grand total of 7 goals and 6 assists. Now, they also signed Sean Corrali, a former member of the Bruins. Corrali recently with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Last season, 82 games, 6 goals, and 11 assists. Not a lot of goal scoring with this free agency class. And again, we're not the hockey guys, but apparently ESPN's feeling pretty good about the Bruins in free agency. They got a B in terms of their free agency recap. But I'm not seeing a lot of goals here, and there's a lot of games, so maybe that just means these players just aren't getting themselves in the right scoring position.
No, scoring 7 goals in 67 games is not that's not great numbers. Even I know that as a non-hockey fan. But, from what I was told, one of my coworkers, big Bruins fan.
They exist?
They still exist. They were telling me that some of the people that they were signing are like, wow, that's a good signing. But I forget, it was one of these players who said, wow, they really paid that much for him?
I think it would be Tanner.
I think it was.
5 years, $17 million.
That's
now,
an overpay.
We're not the hockey guys, but we told Brad we were going to record the show today, and, we said we were going to talk about the Bruins. And he said, you know what? I'm going to contribute to this show somehow. So via text message, here's our hockey guys' analysis of the Bruins in free agency. We beefed up our bottom 6 for sure, but that's about it. Sean Corrali should be worth every cent. He was a big part of the 2019 playoff run. Some good low-level contracts for some of the new kids we got from trades last season also. Korpisalo is probably dealt before the season starts, in my opinion. Tanner Janot, I get it. We are trying to get tougher to compete, but completely overpaying. He's a bottom 6 guy all day. Probably will ride the 4th line more than the 3rd, but I hope I'm wrong there. He had one good season and then kept getting hurt. Who knows? I could be completely wrong, but just about every other hockey talk has agreed so far on Tanner to the Bruins. Go Habs, Bruins suck, from Brad McKinnon. Don't know why he said that at the end, but nonetheless, the Bruins and their fans seem to be on two different sides here, because the Bruins don't have a lot of cap space left, so making these deals that are under $1 million is basically all they can do, and just hope their starting lines at the start of next season pan out. But I'm not feeling good if this is the projected lineup. On the first line, you have Geeky, Lindholm, Pastrnak, not terrible. Second line, you have Pavel Zacha, Casey Middlestedt, Victor Arvidsson. On the third line, Tanner Janot, Fraser Minton, Matthew Poitras. And then on the bottom line there, the quote-unquote Fribble line from 2011, John Beecher, Sean Corrali, and Michael Eyssimont. I'm not feeling very good if that's what I'm throwing out there for the top 12 players.
No, that first line right there, that's a decently good first line. They're all very talented players who can score goals, play pretty good defense, but besides the other 3 lines, oh, God.
Looking at that top line, again, not the hockey guy, but to me, that's maybe what a third line would look like on a Stanley Cup contender, maybe like a Colorado or a Vegas. But if that's your top line at the start of the season, yeesh, going to be a long season. Let's transition now to soccer, something we don't talk a lot about here on the show. I can already tell the looks I'm getting here. This is going to go great. The men's U.S. national team fell to Mexico in the Gold Cup final 2-1 thanks to an Edson Alvarez header off a free kick in the 77th minute that drew a lot of criticism from VAR officials. This is about a year out from the World Cup beginning, but a lot of people at this point here are starting to watch the men's national team and trying to get into soccer and be a good viewer going forward. But going forward, is it possible viewership in the United States can go up watching soccer ahead of the World Cup? When you factor in the teams coming off of a Gold Cup final against Mexico, they held their own in 75 minutes. Can viewership go up watching soccer here in the States?
I mean, I believe it can. I mean, especially it stemmed from the last World Cup that we saw in, I forget where it was, but I definitely believe viewership can, because I see it a lot, especially in my area. There's a large number of Portugal fans, as you know, New Bedford, very Portuguese. So, but I definitely think the soccer viewership will increase, especially with the World Cup.
To me, it's difficult for soccer to be a viable, viewership opportunity in pro sports. You look at basketball, hockey, football, baseball. What's the one thing they all have in common? Basically, play is constantly happening. In soccer, it takes a while for things to get going. I mean, I watched most of that Gold Cup match, the final, and it was just a lot of kicking the ball back and forth, up and down the field, trying to reset the offense before you make that charge. You have a kick that doesn't go anywhere near the net in the case of Team USA, and you reset. That's all soccer is. And in my eyes, I don't think the typical American viewer is going to make time in their schedule to watch. Historically, Team USA has been a nightmare as far as World Cup play goes. This team has never advanced past the quarters in World Cup history. Can you believe that? They've gotten past the first round of the knockouts, the round of 16. But Team USA, you think about where the U.S. is in terms of the globe in athletics, you would think Team USA would at least make it to a semifinal or a final, but they haven't made it past the quarters. And in my eyes, I don't see that happening, because in the Gold Cup, yes, you faced Mexico, but you didn't have to deal with a Brazil or an England or Australia. You didn't have to face some of these top competition here. You were able to bring your B squad for the men's national team into the Gold Cup final, and they held their own against Mexico. They got to the 77th minute, tied at 1. That's great, but I don't think that's going to happen when you face a top team from Brazil. I don't think that's possible.
I don't think it is either. The U.S. compared to the rest of the world has very limited talent. You got some of these teams like Argentina, Mexico, England, Brazil. The U.S. cannot compete with these teams, and it shows every World Cup. And it stinks too, because it's like, we're the U.S. We should, we should be number one at everything we do. We're the best at everything. But in soccer, it's simply not the case, and never has been.
I mean, the U.S., it's going to be interesting to see what the U.S. gets to face in the World Cup, as they are going to be a host country. Typically, the host country gets a favorable pool of teams, but when you're Team USA and you're having a difficult time getting through the Gold Cup, I'm not sure what that's going to mean for the World Cup coming up in 2026. We will take a quick timeout here. When we come back, it's game time here on the Sidelines. We're going to find out who some popular NBA players didn't play for after the break.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie. Nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Welcome back to the show. Time to play a little game. We always like our games here on the Sidelines. And we have a interesting league coming to Boston coming up this Sunday from when we're recording. Big Three basketball. A 3-on-3 competition involving some former NBA players and playing 3-on-3 to 50. You have to win by 2. A lot of interesting rules there. But there are some NBA players who you may be familiar with on these various squads. And what I thought we would do to kind of introduce people to the Big Three is I would give you a player and you would tell me what NBA team they didn't play for. So these are some journeyman players. We're going to see who they didn't play for. So we're going to start off first with Miami 305's Michael Beasley. Who didn't he play for? A, the Minnesota Timberwolves, B, the Houston Rockets, C, the Denver Nuggets, or D, the New York Knicks.
I'm going to have to go with A.
Ooh, C, the Denver Nuggets, actually.
I swear he played for the Nuggets at least once.
I mean, a lot of these guys played for like 5 or 6 teams, so that's why this game was actually a little more easier than others. Next up, the Chicago Triplets, Montrezl Harrell. Who didn't he play for? Was it A, Boston, B, the LA Clippers, C, the LA Lakers, or D, the Houston Rockets?
Never played for the Celtics.
Bingo. Want to give you an easier one. Next up here, the Boston Ball Hogs coach, the NBA Hall of Famer Gary Payton. Who didn't he play for? A, Seattle, B, the Heat, C, the Celtics, or D, the Suns?
He never played for Miami.
Never played for the Suns, actually.
I knew he played for Boston, Seattle. I knew that.
1 year in 04. So you want to talk about the train wreck years for the Celtics. I think 04 was maybe the start of the train wreck
I was
years.
born.
All right, well, show over now. Finally here, the LA Riots, Dwight Howard. Who didn't he play for?
Played for a lot.
A, the Magic, B, the Clippers, C, the 76ers, or D, the Hawks?
He never played for the Clippers.
There you go. You did good. You know your big 3 basketball athletes. Now, if you can go through all the rules, that'd be even more impressive, but we'll save that for another time. I'm going to be sad about the fact that I'm that much older than you. Thanks for watching the show. We might be back next month. Who knows? You know, I may get old. I may get age shamed again. Who knows? But for Zach,
I didn't mean to age shame.
for Zach Sylvia, I'm John Luck. Show over. I'm old. Goodbye.
Where are you going?